Hello students. In today's lecture, we are going to continue with nonlinear regression functions. We had initially looked at nonlinear functions of one variable where we looked at different kinds of transformations of the independent variables such as polynomial, adding variables of different orders, quadratic or cubic transformations of the independent variables, and we also looked at including logarithmic transformation of either the independent variables or the dependent variable, and then looking at what it means, how to interpret those transformations. But we can also include nonlinear functions which involve two or more variables, and these functions are known as interaction variables. Okay, so this is what we are going to look at in today's lecture. So interactions between independent variables. So let us look at the particular example that we have been discussing so far. So how much does a class size reduction, what effect does it have on the performance or academic performance of students in those classes? So perhaps class size reduction is more effective in some circumstances than in others. So maybe smaller classes help more if there are many English learners. So when there are more students in the class that are struggling with English, in that case smaller classes and more individualized attention from the teachers may actually help the students and improve their achievement to a greater. The improvement in the test scores of such students may be higher if they are able to attend smaller class sizes. So basically what we are saying is that the marginal effect of one increase in one independent variable, that is student teacher ratio. So change in test score by student teacher ratio might depend on the percentage English learners that is there in that particular school, might depend on the level of percentage English learners that is there in that school. So we are saying in general, if you are not just talking of this example, in general del y by del x1 might depend on x2. Okay, so how do we model such interactions between x1 and x2? So this is what we are going to talk about. So first we will consider binary x's and then continuous x's. So first we look at interaction between two binary variables. So suppose we have two binary variables d1 and d2, and these are binary. Beta 1 is the effect of changing, and these take values of 1 and 0. So d1 and d2 take values of 1 and 0. So beta 1 is the effect of changing d1 from 0 to d1 equals to 1, and beta 2 is the effect of changing d2 from a value of 0 to d2 equals to 1. Okay, and here in this specification, when we specify the model like this, then the effect of d1 on y does not depend on d2. Now, in order to allow the effect of d1 on y to depend on d2, what we do is we include something that's called an interaction term, which is nothing but the product of d1 and d2. Okay, so we include this new term in the regression, into the original regression, and we call it the interaction term. And we will see how this interaction term actually allows you to let the value, whatever you want, that the change in d1 on y, the effect of a change in d1 on y should depend on the level of d2. It will allow you to do that. We will see how that works. So how do you, when you change d1 from 0 to 1, how do you see what is beta 1? So we compare the two different cases. So in one case d1 is 0 and d2i takes some other value d2. We just allow it to be d2. We don't specify whether it's taking a value of 0 or 1 in this particular case. So d1i equals to 0 is here this term d1i this disappears, and this term also d1i equals to 0, this term also disappears. Then we have expected value of yi given d1i is equal to 0 is nothing but beta 0 plus beta 2 d2. So only these two terms remain. If you allow d1 to be 1 and d2i remains constant at whatever level it was before, that is d2, then you get beta 0 plus beta 1. Here d1 is 1, so beta 0 plus beta 1 plus beta 2 d2, and here d1 takes a value of 1, so it becomes beta 3 d2. So now you can say that if you subtract equation B from equation A, expected value of y given d1 equals to 1 minus expected value of y given d1 equals to 0 is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 minus beta 0. So beta 0 cancels out. So you are left with beta 1, and beta 2 d2 and beta 2 d2 cancel out. So you are left with beta 3 d2. Now notice that this is basically the marginal effect of changing d1 from 0 to 1, and the marginal effect of does not depend only on beta 1. It is not just beta 1, but it also includes the term beta 3 d2. So that means it also depends on whatever is the value of d2. Even though d2 is remaining constant in both cases, it is affecting the marginal change on y of changing a value of d1 from 1 to 0. So effect of d1 depends on d2. This is what you wanted, and beta 3 is the increment to the effect of d1 when d2 equals to 1. Okay, so this is what this is how two binary variables happen. So now we will look at a particular test score. So we look at a particular example where we look at test scores, student-teacher ratio and English learners. Now originally student-teacher ratio and English learners were continuous variables, but in order to illustrate this particular example of two dummy variables, we discretize this variable and we define a new variable called high str, which takes on a value of 1 if str is greater than equal to 20, and takes on a value of 0 if str is less than 20. Similarly, we discretize the English learners continuous variable into and create a new variable called high English learners, which takes on a value of 1 if percentage English learners is greater than equal to 10, and takes on a value of 0 where percentage English learners is less than 10. Remember that these variables were not originally there in your data set. You are creating these two new variables. Now after creating these variables, you regress test score on these new variables, and you get, this is the regression equation that you get. Okay, and these are the associated standard errors. Now effect of high STR when HIEL equals to 0, when HIEL equals to 0, then this term disappears, and only you are left with this term also disappears. And so if HIEL is equal to 0, the effect is just the effect of high STR on test score, which is minus 1.9, which is what is given here, is minus 1.9. Now, but if HIEL is equal to 1, then what happens is your beta 0 also changes. So this becomes 664.1 minus 18.2, that is your intercept changes, but your slope also changes. So your slope changes by an amount of minus 3.5. You further subtract minus 3.5, that is your slope is much higher, the magnitude of the slope is much higher. So the effect of high STR on y when the accompanying the school also happens to be a school where there are large number of English learners, the magnitude of this effect is much higher than when there were lower numbers of English learners. So class size reduction is estimated to have a bigger effect when the percentage of English learners is large. However, if you look at this beta coefficient and the associated errors, then you will see that if you actually test the t statistic that this is equal to 0, you cannot reject that t statistic because 3.5 by 3.1, it is less than 1.96. So it is not statistically significant. Okay, this does not seem to be statistically significant by itself. So, for instance, if high STR is 1, if this is thing, and you get this particular regression equation. Now, if you were to actually create these two, because these are two binary variables, you can actually create groups. So one group will have low English learners and low STR, one group will have high English learners and low STR, one group will have low English learners and high STR, and one group will have high English learners and high STR. So these groups, these are the average test scores for these particular groups. If you look at the average test scores, so as you can see, average test score for low English learners and low STR and low English learners and high STR, the difference between this is, about whatever, it's about 2.1 or something like this. Low English learners, at a level of low English learners, that means these are students that are proficient in English. Low English learners is proficient in English. Over there, changing your student-teacher ratio does not seem to affect the score so much. But people who are weak in English, over there, if you change to low student-teacher ratio, that is, you reduce the class size, then your test score goes up by a lot. The test score goes up by 5.4. So if you were to take group averages and do an ANOVA, you can, when you look at group averages, you can do analysis of variance. If you were to do an ANOVA, then also you would be able to test the hypothesis that there is in fact a interaction effect. Okay, so by including this product term in your regression, you can do it in a much more easier fashion. Now we look at interactions between continuous and binary variables. What if you have one binary variable and one continuous variable? Binary variable is di and continuous variable is xi. Okay, so the effect on y of x. So suppose we say, what is the effect on y of an incremental change in x holding constant d? In this particular specification, it is just beta 2, because di and xi are their effects. There isn't an interaction effect which is assumed in this particular specification. But suppose in fact, in reality, you suspect that there may be an interaction effect going on. So to allow the effect of x to depend on d, include the interaction term di multiplied by xi. Okay, so this is you have to understand whether it is important to include such an interaction term based on your understanding of the process that you are trying to model or the domain knowledge that you have. Okay, sometimes, but when you include such a product term, it will allow you to model such an interaction effect. So when you do this, what happens is that you actually build two different regression lines. How this happens is, you have beta 0 plus beta 1 di plus beta 2 xi plus beta 3 di multiplied by xi. Again, we take the di equals to 0 group, then you have yi equals to beta 0 plus beta 2 xi plus ui, and di equals to 1 group, then you have yi equals to beta 0 plus beta 1. Here di equals to 1, so you get beta 1 plus beta 2 xi plus beta 3, again di is equal to 1. So you get beta 3 xi. Now if you take xi out of the bracket and you put a bracket along these two constant terms and you put a bracket around beta 2 and beta 3, then you get a new term, new regression line, where this is your new intercept, beta 0 plus beta 1 is your new intercept, and beta 2 plus beta 3 is your new slope with when the for the d equals to 1 group. So now you are able to specify two different lines with two different intercepts and two different slopes. Okay, so so let us look at what graphically what it looks like. If you were to just include the dummy variable by itself and not include a interaction term, then you would just allow your intercept to change for the two groups, but you are not allowing your slopes to change. So you are basically going to fit two parallel lines but with different intercepts. But when you allow your slopes also to change, you allow your intercepts to change and you allow your slopes to change, then you get these two different kinds of lines, and this allows you to model a more realistic situation of what the reality is. Another case may be when you allow the same intercept, that is they start at the same point but then they diverge in terms of their slopes. The two groups diverge in terms of their slopes. One of the interesting examples for where this might work is when you include gender as a dummy variable and the gender as a dummy variable, and you are trying to look at the effect of education on income. So if you look at income and if you look at income and if you look at education, so education is your continuous variable and you are looking at two different groups. So if you allow if you don't allow an interaction effect, you may just find that you get two different lines, this for maybe for the males and this may be for the females, and there you will just say that for all levels of education there is a constant difference in salaries that males and females get. Okay, but if you allow an interaction effect, then what you can you might be able to get two lines like this, so which happens like this. So this may be for males and this may be for females. So they say that for smaller, less educated people, the differences in wages may not be much. So this is non-skilled labor. Over here they may be getting the same hourly rate, but as the level of education increases and both males and females are acquiring higher and higher levels of education, then because of life circumstances or whatever it is, you might find that males are actually making far more, the salary gap between males with higher education and females with higher education is far more at levels of higher education. So here education is actually affecting the income, the differential in income to a greater extent at high levels of education. Okay, so this is one interesting example which I thought I should point out, because you may be able to understand what we are trying to look at. So in this case, by including the interaction term, you are allowing your model to specify, to allowing the model to speak for changes in initial points as well as changes in slopes. Okay. Yeah. So now we interpret the coefficients. So the general rule is to compare the various cases. So we compare the case where d changes from 1 to 0. So when d changes from 1 to 0, y plus delta y is equal to, when d is equal to 0, you have when d is equal to 0, you have beta 2 plus I'm sorry, here x is changing, d is not changing. So when x changes by delta x, you have beta 0 plus beta 1 d plus beta 2 x plus delta x plus beta 3 d multiplied by x plus delta x. And when you have the original x, then you have just beta 0 plus beta 1 d plus beta 2 x plus beta 3 dx. So you subtract the equation b from the equation a and you get del y is equal to beta 2 delta x plus beta 3 d delta x, or del y by delta x, that is the change in y by change in x, is equal to beta 2 plus beta 3 d. And this again, the effect depends on d. This is what we wanted. So beta 3 is the increment to the effect of x when d equals to 1. So if we use this kind of a specification for our student-teacher ratio and high English learners, so we keep high English learners as the binary variable, and we revert to the continuous variable student-teacher ratio. So if we now specify this model, then we arrive at this regression equation. And when high English learners is 0, test score is 682.2 minus 0.97 STR. These two terms drop out. And when high English learners is 1, then we have 682.2 plus 5.6 minus 0.97 STR minus 1.28 STR, that is 687.8 minus 2.25 STR. So we get two different regression lines where both the intercept is also different and the slopes are also different. We get two different regression lines. So the class size reduction is estimated to have a, and over here the slope is, the magnitude of the slope is higher. So class size reduction is estimated to have a larger effect when the percentage of English learners is large, which is what we found earlier also. So now what happens is, if you look at the t ratios, or you test these beta coefficients whether they are statistically significant, you will find that actually both of these beta coefficients, the t statistics are quite small. Here the t statistic is minus 1.32, which is less than in magnitude than 1.96. Okay, so magnitude of this is less than 1.96, and the magnitude of this is also less than 1.96. So it is not significant at the 95% confidence level. However, if you were to do a joint hypothesis test of testing that both of these beta 3s and beta 4s, beta 2 and beta 3, both of them are equal to 0, then you will arrive at a F statistic of 89.94, and you cannot reject the null hypothesis, that is beta 2 equals to beta 3 equals to 0. So suppose this is your null and you are testing these two terms, then and you do an associated F statistic with this, then you get a value of 89.94, which is far higher than the critical value of F statistic. So what is going on? Why do we get that we cannot reject the joint hypothesis? So this may have to do with the fact that student-teacher ratio and high English learners, they are somewhat correlated. So there is some multicollinearity going on over here, and as a result of which the standard errors associated with these coefficients are high, and as a result of which the individual t statistics seem to be lower. Okay, but it does not mean that overall there is no effect. Now we look at interactions between two continuous variables. So we have looked at two binary variables. We have looked at a binary variable and a continuous variable. Now we look at two continuous variables. So x1 and x2 are both continuous. The effect of, in this specification, x1 and x2 are independent of each other, and the effect of one on y is not said to be assumed to depend on the other. Okay, but if in fact you suspect that the effect of x1 on y may depend on x2, then you can include an interaction term which is x1 multiplied by x2, and you can try to regress y on x1, x2 and x1 multiplied by x2 and try to see what results you get from that. Okay, so so again, if you look at the various cases, what happens when x1 changes by delta x1? So y changes by delta y. But x2 is kept constant at whatever the original at one value of x2. So you get beta 0 plus beta 1 delta x1 plus delta x1 plus beta 2 x2. You are keeping x2 constant and seeing what is the marginal effect of x1 changing by delta x1. So over here also x1 plus delta x1 multiplied by x2. Okay, so you get beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 1 delta x1 plus beta 2 x2 plus beta 3 x1 x2 plus beta 3 x1 delta x1 x2. Okay, now if you subtract equation B from equation A to see what is the marginal change, on your left hand side you will have delta y, and in your right hand side you will have beta 1 delta x1 plus beta 3 x2 delta x1. Or if you look at the marginal change for every unit change in x1, you will arrive at beta 1 plus beta 3 x2. So effect of x1 depends on x2. This is what we wanted to model, and you have got that in fact by including the interaction term. Beta 3 is the increment to the effect of x1 from a unit change in x2. So now if you actually regress the equation by putting in your interaction term, these are the coefficients and these are the associated standard errors that you get from your data set, and the change in test score over change in STR is you find it as minus 1.12 plus 0.0012 percentage English learners. So for different levels of percentage English learners, so when percentage English learners is 0, your marginal effect is just minus 1.12. When your percentage English learners is 20%, now notice that in the previous case percentage English learners was a dummy variable. It just took a value of 0 or 1 when we took high EL. Okay, here percentage English learners is a continuous variable, so it is changing from 0 to 20%. You could also look at other values of percentage English learners such as 5% or 15% or whatever it is. But for a value of 20%, then you just multiply 0.0012 multiplied by 20 and you add it to minus 1.12 and you get minus 1.10. So if you conduct hypothesis test, again you find that the individual t statistics are small, so you cannot reject the null hypothesis that this beta coefficient is actually equal to 0 and this beta coefficient is actually equal to 0. They are actually small magnitudes, but jointly they are, you do reject the null hypothesis because while your F statistic is not as high over here as 89.94, but still it is above the critical value and you have a small p-value, so you reject the null hypothesis that both of them have absolutely no effect on your the interaction effect has no effect on your marginal effect of STR on Y. So now we apply it to the test score on the student-teacher ratio. Nonlinear specifications let us examine more nuanced questions about the test score STR relation. Are there nonlinear effects of class size reduction on test scores? Okay, so there are two ways we can look at. Just class size reduction by itself, is there a nonlinear reduction effect of that variable on the test score? So does a reduction from 35 to 30 have the same effect as a reduction from 20 to 15? Are there nonlinear interactions between percentage English learners and student-teacher ratio? So as you can see, these are two different kinds of questions that we are asking, and you can model both of these by using different kinds of nonlinear terms. So when you do this estimate linear and nonlinear function of STR holding constant relevant demographic variables, percentage English learners, income and so on and so forth, lunch percentage. see whether adding the nonlinear term makes an economically important quantitative difference. Now, the point is economic or real world importance is different from statistically significant. Economically important basically means is that what is the magnitude of the difference, of including the magnitude of change in the fit of the model. Okay, how much better is your model fitting as a result of including nonlinear terms. Okay, so this is, even though it may be statistically significant, but if the change is very, very small, then by the principle of Occam's razor, maybe you should not include your nonlinear terms. So this is a call that you have to take as a modeler. Test whether the nonlinear terms are statistically significant. Estimate linear and nonlinear functions of STR interacted with percentage English learners. If the specification is nonlinear with STR, STR square, STR cube, then you need to add interactions with all the terms so that the entire functional form can be different depending on the level of percentage English learners. So we will use a binary continuous interaction specification, and we will look at what the functions look like. So the good base specification, when we look at it from a graphical point of view, they are saying that the logarithmic specification looks like it is better behaved, though I thought that the cubic regression is probably going through the middle of the points at the extreme ends of income. But let us look at the actual models when they have been built, and the models have been represented in this compact kind of table, which is what I recommend that you also can use this kind of a table. Here you can put all your different models that you built in the different columns. The first column stands for the different independent variables that you might want to include, and each model is giving different combinations of the independent variables. So the first model just has a linear model. You have included student-teacher ratio, percentage English learners, and percentage eligible for subsidized lunch. This is for the first model. In the second model, you have included another variable, which is average district income, the log of the average district income. So this is, you are taking a logarithmic transformation of the average district income, and you are fitting this model. In the third model, you are including interaction variable between high English learners. You are dropping the continuous variable and you are including an interaction variable between high English learners and student-teacher ratio. In the fourth model, you are including, in this third model, you have not included percentage eligible for subsidized lunch and average district income. Here you have included the interaction term also, and these two terms also, percentage eligible for English subsidized lunch as well as average log of the district income. Over here you have included some nonlinear transformations. So you have included a quadratic term for STR, you have included a cubic term for STR, you have included a binary. Over here also you had included the binary dependent variable high English learners in both of these cases, and here you have not included any interaction terms. Here in model 6 you have included both quadratic and cubic terms for STR, and you have included the interaction terms between the binary dependent variable and all of the quadratic and cubic terms. So this model 6 has the largest number of variables, independent variables included, and in the model 7 again you leave the percentage English learners as a continuous variable, and you don't include a discrete dependent variable. So these are the 7 models that have been built, and if you look at the R square, you will find that the R square sort of increases. This model seems to have the lowest R square, and this model 6 has the highest R square, but both model 5 and model 7 have, you know, the difference in R square is very minimal. So you can sort of look at what are these two models, and either model 5 or model 7 might be an appropriate model for you, which you will have to determine based on your understanding of the domain that you are working with. So if you look at the graphical representations, because they are nonlinear terms, you may find some curves like this, and these are given over here. So compare the regressions with the interaction. So you can find that with the interaction, you can find some terms where basically the differences between the two groups is increasing as the student-teacher ratio increases. So to conclude this lecture, we will summarize the nonlinear regression functions. So what are the different kinds of nonlinear regression functions you can use? You can use independent variables log of x or x1 by x multiplied by x2, and you can recast a large family of nonlinear regression functions in the same multiple regression formulation. Okay, so estimation and inference proceed in the same way. Interpretation of the coefficients is something that you have to worry about a little bit, and it will depend on the particular model that you have built. But the general rule is to compute effects by comparing different cases, different values of original x's. Many nonlinear specifications are possible, so you must use judgment. You should not just throw in any nonlinear terms just like that. You must see that does it make sense in your particular application. So with this, we conclude the lectures on nonlinear regression.